Jason Callan stood still as the alien shuttle touched down on the smooth white stone of the Varelian landing platform. The sky above him was a soft purple, and the sun had a golden glow that gave everything a dreamy feel. He adjusted his collar and took a deep breath. He was Earth's representative, a diplomat and scientist, and this was the first. Peaceful mission to Varelia. The Varelians were a mysterious race. Tall, graceful, with pale silver skin and large violet eyes, they looked almost human, but they were very different on the inside. Their minds were calm, logical, and completely controlled. Didn't feel strong emotions. No anger, no fear, no joy, and definitely no desire. Jason was told he would be working closely with a Varelian linguist and scientist named Saranaya. She was young by her people's standards and known for her curiosity about other species. That made her perfect for this cultural exchange. When Saranaya stepped out of the shuttle, Jason was stunned. She was beautiful in a soft, quiet way. She had long, white blonde hair that shimmered in the sun, and her eyes were deep like a still lake. She didn't smile. Varelians never smiled, but there was something different in the way she looked at him. "I am Saranaya," she said, her voice calm and even. "You are Jason Callan, human male, aged 34, Earth years." Jason chuckled softly. "That's me, and you are very efficient." Saranaya tilted her head slightly. "You find efficiency humorous?" "Sometimes," Jason said with a smile. "But don't worry. You'll get used to human ways." She stared at him for a moment longer than necessary. Then she nodded and turned. "Follow me. You will stay in the knowledge tower. Your quarters have been prepared." In the days that followed, Jason and Saranaya worked side by side. They studied languages, shared data, and talked about the differences between their worlds. Saranaya asked questions, many questions. She was more curious than any Varelian Jason had read about. She asked why humans smiled, why they laughed, why they sang songs that made them cry. Jason tried to explain feelings, how emotions were a part of being human. He told her stories, showed her Earth music, even shared poetry. Saranaya listened, but something about her started to change. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with soft colors, Saranaya stood alone on a balcony, staring into the horizon. Jason joined her, holding 2 cups of warm herbal tea. He offered her one. "I read that tea is a comfort drink on Earth," she said. "It is," Jason replied. "We drink it to relax. Or when we're with someone we enjoy being around." Saranaya accepted the cup and took a small sip. Then she turned to him and asked, "Why do you enjoy being around me?" Jason smiled. "'Cause you're interesting, smart, honest, and honestly. You don't act like most Varelians." Saranaya blinked. "I am ... different." "Yes," Jason said gently, "and that's not a bad thing." She looked away, her expression unreadable. But deep inside her chest, something moved. A strange heat, a flutter. She didn't have words for it. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept remembering Jason's smile, the way he looked at her and how it made her feel something strange, something warm. The next day, Saranaya began acting differently. She was distracted, often staring at Jason when she thought he wasn't looking. She would pause in the middle of a sentence, as if lost in thought. Jason noticed. "Are you okay?" he asked during one of their lessons. "I do not know," she admitted. "My mind is not clear. I cannot focus. I feel ... off balance." "Maybe. You're just tired." "No," she said. "It only happens when you are near me." Jason raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Saranaya stood up and paced the room. "When I see your face, I feel warmth in my chest. When you speak, I feel heat in my skin. When you leave, I feel ... empty." Jason's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly understood. "Saranaya," he said slowly, "I think you're starting to feel emotions." She looked at him, shocked. "But Varelians do not feel." "Maybe they didn't before," he said, "but you're changing. You're evolving." "No," she whispered. I was fine before. You changed me. Jason stepped closer, but kept his voice calm. I didn't do anything to you. Maybe something inside you just woke up. Her breathing became shallow. There is one emotion I cannot name. It is strong. It burns like fire when I see you. I read about it in human literature. It is called lust. Jason went silent. Serenea took a step back. I believe you are the cause of this, and I do not know if I can control it. To be continued. Serenea sat in the quiet observation room, her hands pressed flat against the glass window. Outside, the wind moved gently across the shining white plains of Virilia, but inside her, everything was in chaos. For the first time in her life, she couldn't trust her own thoughts. Jason's words from the day before still echoed in her mind. Maybe something inside you just woke up. She didn't like how true it felt. Virelians were not supposed to feel. They were not supposed to be distracted or confused. But ever since Jason arrived, something inside her had changed. When she closed her eyes, she saw his smile. When she tried to work, she found herself listening for his footsteps. She called it lust, because it was the only word that matched the physical feelings, the heat, the pounding heart, the nervous flutter in her stomach. But it was more than that. It was curiosity, comfort, and a strange need to be close, and that scared her. Jason knocked on the door frame gently. Hey, you've been quiet today. Serenea turned slowly. I am trying to study my condition. Raised an eyebrow and stepped into the room. Condition? Make it sound like you're sick? I might be, she said, serious. Virelians do not feel as I do. These sensations are not normal. Jason sighed and sat across from her. I still think it's not a sickness. Maybe it's just something new, something you've never felt before. Serenea narrowed her eyes. And yet it began only after I met you. I spoke with others. No one else feels as I do. That suggests cause and effect. Jason smiled gently. Or maybe it means you're the first of your kind to evolve. She looked away. That sounds dangerous. Maybe it's not, Jason replied. Maybe it's beautiful. Later that day, Serenea was called before a group of Virelian scientists. Had noticed her unusual behavior, missed reports, lowered focus, emotional tone, shifts. They believed she was mentally unstable. They asked questions. Clinical ones. Have you experienced irrational thoughts? Yes, Serenea replied calmly. Physical changes when near the human. Yes. Are you experiencing psychological attraction? She hesitated. Possibly? The scientists exchanged looks. One of them, Elder Moran, stepped forward. Serenea, he said coldly, you are showing signs of contamination, emotional corruption. It is rare, but known. We believe it is caused by prolonged exposure to alien emotional fields. Jason, who was allowed to be present as her cultural partner, stood up. She's not corrupted. She's learning, feeling something for the first time. Miran ignored him. Left unchecked, the condition may spread. It must be corrected, Serenea's voice was steady. And if I refuse, then you will be removed from this project, and possibly exiled for safety. Jason stared at them, shocked. You can't just erase who she is becoming. She is Virelian, Miran said firmly. Not human. We do not bend to chaos. Back in her quarters, Serenea sat on the floor silent. Jason paced nearby, angry. They want to wipe your mind like you're some broken machine. They are afraid, she said quietly. Afraid that I am changing. Jason stopped. You're not changing into something bad? You're just becoming more. Serenea looked up. But what if it never stops? What if I become so human-like that I cannot return to my own people? I do not even understand half of what I feel. Jason sat beside her. You don't have to understand it all at once. Humans don't either. We live with confusion every day. She looked into his eyes. How do you carry such emotions without falling apart? He chuckled softly. Sometimes we do fall apart, but then we get back up. It's part of being alive. There was silence. Between them, then, Serenea whispered, I feel drawn to you. When you speak, my thoughts stop. When you are close, my chest feels full. Jason's breath caught. He saw the fear in her eyes, not fear of him, but of herself. You're not alone in this, he said gently. I'll stay. Whatever happens, I won't leave you. Serenea nodded slowly. Then help me learn. Help me name what I feel. Over the next few days, Jason spent all his free time helping Serenea explore her new emotions. He showed her music, not the calm background tones of Virelia, but Earth's symphonies full of sorrow, hope, and joy. He shared food from Earth, sweet, spicy, comforting dishes that sparked pleasure responses in her brain. He read her poems about longing and connection. Some she didn't understand, but others made her silent for long moments. Your species feels with such strength, she said once, and yet you survive it. That is impressive. Jason smiled. We don't just survive it. Sometimes it's the reason we want to survive. But not everyone was happy about Serenea's growth. Moran and his council continued to monitor her. Her emotions were seen as dangerous proof of instability. Rumors began to spread. Other Virelians whispered that the human was poisoning her mind. The council gave her one final warning: report for cleansing, or face exile. That night, Serenea stood under the stars beside Jason. They have given me a choice, she said softly. Lose myself, or lose my home. Jason didn't speak. He waited. She looked at him, her eyes softer than ever before. But maybe I can build a new home, with someone who does not fear what I feel. Jason reached for her hand. For the first time, she didn't pull away. I'll go with you, he said, wherever you choose. And in the silence of the alien night, a decision was made. The night was quiet, but Serenea's heart was not. She stood at the edge of the tall observation tower, looking down at the glowing city lights of Virelia. The stars above sparkled like crystals, but they gave her no peace. Her decision was made. She would not return to the cold, emotionless path the council demanded. Jason stood beside her, silent. He didn't try to change her mind, simply stood with her like a steady light in the darkness. They will come for me, Serenea said. Maybe tonight. Then we leave before they do, Jason answered calmly. Serenea turned to him. If we run, you may never return to Earth. You will be hunted too. Jason gave a soft smile. I'd rather be hunted for doing the right thing than stay safe by watching someone lose their soul. She studied his face, his warmth, his certainty. She wasn't used to it, the way humans could be brave and kind at the same time. Feel something when I'm near you, she whispered. It's not just attraction, but safety. Like I can finally breathe. Jason stepped closer. That's what we call trust. They moved quickly. Serenea accessed a private transport log, and he found a small research vessel docked on the far side of the city. It was rarely used and had an old transponder easy to hide from tracking systems. They wore plain robes and took quiet paths through the towers. Every few minutes, Serenea paused to scan for patrols. Her hands trembled, but her mind was clear. Jason, notice the change. You're different, he said. I am no longer trying to not feel, she replied. Now I am letting it guide me. As they neared the vessel, Serenea's communicator buzzed. A message flashed from Council Elder Moran. You are not beyond healing. Report now. Do not take this path. She closed the message. Her jaw tightened. They still think this is sickness. Jason shook his head. They'll never understand unless they feel it for themselves. Once aboard, Serenea piloted the ship with careful hands. Jason watched her from the co-pilot seat. Destination? She asked. There's a neutral station, Navali's outpost. Humans and many other species live there. No Virelian authority. She nodded and engaged the launch code. The vessel rose smoothly and disappeared into the night sky. Virelia grew smaller behind them. Serenea stared at it for a moment. That place was my world, and now it feels ... hollow. Jason placed a hand over hers. Because you outgrew it. The journey to Navali's took 2 standard days. During that time, Serenea and Jason talked often. But they also sat in quiet. Moments learning to share space in a new way, she told him about her childhood, how she was always different, how teachers said she was too curious, how others avoided her silent questions. He told her about Earth, about laughter, friendship, stories around fires, and songs sung for no reason. "It sounds noisy," Saranaya said. "It is," Jason laughed, "but it's real. And we feel everything: pain, joy, love, and we survive it." She touched her chest lightly. "Then maybe I can survive it too." At last, they arrived at Navali's outpost, a large ring-shaped space station orbiting a blue gas giant. The station was busy, filled with people of many species. Lights blinked, traders shouted, and the air buzzed with life. Saranaya felt overwhelmed. So many feelings, everywhere. Jason gently guided her through the crowd. "It's okay. You don't have to process it all at once." They found a small room in the quiet residential wing. It was simple: a bed, a table, and a window showing the swirling gas clouds of the planet below. "This will be our temporary home," Jason said. Saranaya sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled slowly. "I didn't know what it meant to run away. Now I understand it is not just escape. It is, becoming free. But freedom never comes without a price." 2 days after arriving, Jason received a message from a neutral contact. Varelian trackers had entered the system. They were searching for Saranaya. "They will take me by force if they find me," Saranaya said. "Then we don't let them," Jason replied. "But we cannot run forever," she said quietly. "They believe I'm a danger. And if I stay hidden, they'll always fear what I've become." Jason sat beside her. "Then we show them the truth." Saranaya's eyes widened. "You want me to face them?" as he said. "Not to apologize, but to prove you're not broken. You're proof your people can feel and still think clearly." She was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. "If I do this, will you stand with me?" "Always," they contacted. The Galactic Peace Council, an independent group with authority over interspecies disputes. Jason requested a hearing, stating that Saranaya was being threatened for a natural evolution, not a crime. To their surprise, the council agreed. A trial of reason would be held at Navali's. The Varelian delegation would arrive within the week. "You've just become the first emotional Varelian in history," Jason told her. "Now you get to be the first to speak for your kind." Saranaya looked out the window at the stars. "For so long I thought I was alone, but now, I feel stronger than ever." Jason reached out, and this time she held his hand without hesitation. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Saranaya wasn't afraid of who she was becoming. She was ready to face her people and show them a new path. The great debate hall of Navali's outpost had never been so full. Curved rows of seats rose like waves around a wide circular floor. Delegates of many species whispered in a dozen languages, while camera drones hummed overhead. Somewhere in the crowd, a choir of tiny insect people clicked their wings in nervous rhythm. At the center of it all stood Saranaya, silver-skinned and visibly trembling. She wore a plain gray robe, but her violet eyes shone with quiet courage. "Jason." Callan waited a step behind her, hands folded, trying to look calm even though his heart pounded. A clear chime echoed. Lights dimmed. The Galactic Peace Council, 5 judges from 5 different worlds, took their seats on a raised platform. Their leader, a feather-crested avian named Chair Talos, lifted a slim datapad. "Proceedings will now begin, Talos," announced. K731, the people of Varelia V. Saranaya Dest Varelia. Charges: cultural contamination and endangerment of social order. A doorway hissed open on the far side. The Varelian delegation walked in, with measured steps. In front was Elder Moran, his silver cloak trimmed in council blue. His face, as always, showed no feeling, but his sharp gaze fixed on Saranaya. Like a laser, Saranaya inhaled, held the breath, then let it out slowly. "Trust," she reminded herself. "Trust and truth." Opening statements, Marin began. His voice was smooth, almost musical, yet flat. Honored Council Saranaya has been exposed to chaotic human stimuli. She now displays uncontrolled urges that threaten our society. We request she be returned for corrective treatment. Virilia must remain a realm of reason. Some delegates nodded, others frowned. Chair Talos turned to Jason. Earth Representative, you may speak. Jason stepped forward. Saranaya is not ill. She is evolving. Virelia's fear of emotions blocks growth not only for her, but for every Virelian yet to be born. Miran lifted an eyebrow. Evolution without order is decay, Jason answered. Emotion with wisdom is strength. Murmurs rippled across the hall. Evidence first came scans, brain images projected above the floor. Two patterns glowed side by side, one from a typical Virelian, one from Saranaya. The differences were obvious. Colored currents of activity pulsed in Saranaya's limbic centers. Observe the instability, Miran declared. Jason pointed. Also observe the increased neural connectivity. She processes information faster, draws creative links and shows. Empathy. Those aren't defects. They're advantages, next came witness reports. A human trader spoke of Saranaya helping an injured dock worker, staying all night to comfort him. A reptilian scholar testified that Saranaya had solved a translation puzzle in hours after feeling the rhythm of the unknown language. Finally, Saranaya herself was invited to testify. Saranaya's voice stepped into the circle alone, her palms sweated. She folded them behind her back to keep them still. I was raised to silence every spark of feeling, she began, her tone soft but clear. But the spark was always there. Meeting Jason did not plant it. It only gave it air. She paused, choosing simple words. When I first laughed, I feared I would shatter. Instead, I became whole. Members of the audience leaned forward. Emotion can guide logic, she said, because I care. I listen harder, study deeper, protect life with fiercer will. I'm not less Virelian. I am more. As she spoke, a low warmth spread through her chest. It was pride, another new feeling, but this time she welcomed it. Jason's eyes blurred with tears. Few humans in the hall were surprised. Many Virelians were. An elder in the back touched her own cheek, puzzled by a single drop of moisture. Cross-examination Miran's voice cut through. If we allow this change, what stops chaos? What prevents jealousy, violence, obsession? Saranaya met his gaze. Discipline, teaching, and choice, the same tools all peoples use. Emotion is a river. Build bridges, not walls. Bridges. Flood, Moran snapped. Walls crumble. She answered gently. For the first time, a brittle edge cracked his calm mask. He pressed on. Do you lust for this human? A hush fell. Saranaya did not flinch. I feel attraction, yes. But I also feel respect, curiosity, and trust. Lust alone does not define me, more than logic alone defines you. Jason's shoulders relaxed. The hall stayed silent, listening. Recessed on a threat, the judges called a 1-hour recess. To review arguments, delegates scattered for refreshment. Saranaya and Jason slipped into a quiet side corridor. You were brilliant, Jason whispered. She managed a small smile. My heart is still racing. They didn't notice the lean Virelian guard who followed at a distance. Only when a faint hiss echoed behind them did Jason spin. Stun rod crackled inches from Saranaya's back. Jason acted on instinct. He shoved Saranaya aside and caught the rod across his forearm. Pain burned. His hand went numb.
Out.
Moment Saranaya's training took over, she grabbed the guard's wrist, twisted, and sent the weapon skidding. The guard crashed against the wall, dazed. Footsteps thundered. Security bots rolled in and detained the attacker. Moran arrived seconds later, eyes wide. What is the meaning of this? Saranaya glared. Ask your own guard, Chair Talos. Approached, feathers bristling. Attempted coercion of a witness is a grave offense. The council will note this. Miran opened his mouth, closed it, and bowed stiffly. But the damage was done. Whispers began to shift in Saranaya's favor. Closing. Arguments back in the hall. Tension was sharp as glass. Miran spoke first, but his words weighed less now. He repeated old warnings: chaos, danger, contamination, but many delegates looked unconvinced. Jason did not use data in his closing. Instead, he told a story short and plain. On Earth, we once feared fire, he said. It burned homes and forests, but someone learned to control it, and fire became warmth, light, and life. Emotion is Virelia's fire. Don't smother it, learn to hold it safely. Then he stepped aside. Serenea faced the judges last. She lifted her hand, palm open. I do not ask the council to force change on Virelia. I ask only for the right to live the change already inside me, so that others, if their sparks awaken, need not fear exile. Silence followed, deep and ringing. Deliberation, the judges withdrew. Minutes felt like hours. Jason's injured arm ached, but he barely noticed. Serenea stood very still, eyes closed, breathing slowly. At last the judges returned. Chair Talos clicked his beak and read from the datapad. Finding: Serenea is not mentally unfit. Emotion is determined to be a natural, though rare, variation within Virelian biology. Order: she shall not be returned against her will. She is free to continue her life and studies under council protection. Further recommendation: Virelia. Establish a voluntary research commission to explore emotional development. The hall erupted. Some cheers, some gasps. A few Virelian delegates looked lost, as if their world map had been redrawn. Serenea's knees almost gave way. Jason caught her, steadying her with his good arm. You did it, he whispered. We did. She thought, but words failed, so she simply rested her forehead against his shoulder, letting relief wash through her. Across the hall, Elder Moran watched, face unreadable. Yet for an instant, a muscle near his eye twitched as if struggling with a feeling he could not name. A new dawn later. Outside the debate hall, lights of the gas giant gleamed through wide windows. Serenea and Jason stood side by side. My path is uncertain, she said quietly. I will be studied, questioned. Some will fear me. Jason smiled, eyes soft. And some will follow you into the light. She turned to him. Will you stay? Always, he replied. For a moment they simply breathed the same air. Serenea felt the familiar warmth in her chest, no longer frightening, now precious. The spark had become a steady flame. Far below, the gas giant's clouds shifted, catching starlight, like dawn on water. Somewhere in those swirling colors, a new chapter of Virelian history had already begun. Life at Navali's outpost slowly returned to normal after the trial. But for Serenea, nothing was the same. She was no longer just a scientist, no longer a quiet observer of other worlds. She was now the first of her kind to feel deeply, to express emotion, and to live freely with it. People from all species wanted to meet her. Some offered support. Others came with fear or doubt in their eyes. Still, she stood tall. Jason stayed close. He helped manage interviews, guided her through new cultural experiences, and kept her grounded whenever she felt overwhelmed. One morning, Serenea stood at the window of their quarters, holding a warm mug of herbal tea. The swirling gas giant below shimmered like a painting. Jason sat at the table behind her, working on a report to send back to Earth. Without turning, she said, I never expected freedom to feel so heavy. Jason looked up. Too many visitors? Too many expectations? She answered. They want answers I cannot give. They want me to teach them how to feel, and I barely understand it myself. Jason rose and walked to her side. You're not here to teach emotions. You're here to live them. People will learn just by seeing you be yourself. She looked at him. Even when I'm uncertain. Especially then. Over the next few weeks, Serenea began her work. With the new emotion research team, a mixed group of Virelians and other species. Some were curious scientists. Others were young Virelians, showing early signs of emotional growth. They met in a bright room, full of plants and soft lights, designed to be calm and welcoming. Serena Yaw stood at the center and shared her experiences. She spoke not like a teacher, but like someone walking the same path. Emotion is not a weakness, she said to the group. It is not a disease. It is a part of life that helps us connect. It gives us reason to protect, to wonder, to hope. Young Varelian named Tyrion raised his hand. I feel something new when I listen to music, he said. Is that dangerous? Serenea smiled. It's not dangerous. It's discovery. The others nodded slowly. For the first time, many of them felt seen, but not all reactions were kind. Outside the research team, several older Varelians still feared change. A few sent warnings. Some even posted messages in public forums calling Serenea a threat to unity. Jason noticed the tension building and brought it up during a quiet evening. You need protection, he said. They might try to silence you again. Serenea didn't look worried. They tried once. They failed. Jason frowned. But this time it might not be direct. They could try to discredit you. She tilted her head. And if they do, then we fight back with truth. With proof that what you're doing helps people. Serenea reached across the table and touched his hand. I am not afraid because you are with me. Days passed. Jason introduced Serenea to more of Earth's culture, art, old black and white films, food from different regions. She laughed during comedies and cried during dramas, both experiences still new and powerful to her. One evening, they visited the outpost's small garden dome. Flowers glowed gently in the artificial twilight. A soft breeze moved through the air vents. Serenea walked slowly between the plants, touching petals, breathing deeply. Jason followed quietly. She stopped in front of a silver-blue tree and looked up. Jason, she said. I think I know now. He stepped beside her. Know what? What the strongest feeling is? She said. It is not lust. It is not even joy or sorrow. She turned to him, her voice soft. It is connection. The pull between two people who truly see each other. Ah! Jason smiled gently. That's what we call love. She nodded. I feel that when I look at you, when you're near me, even when I speak your name inside my mind. Jason didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, I feel it too. They stood in silence. There were no more lessons to give. Only truth, spoken with eyes, breath, and closeness. But peace never lasts forever. One morning, a message came from Varelia's High Council. It was not a threat. It was an invitation. Serenea read it twice, then showed Jason. We request your presence on Varelia. It's not for correction, but for cooperation. We believe you may help us understand this evolution and prepare for the future. Jason leaned back in his chair. That's unexpected. They are not ready for change, Serenea said. But they now know they cannot stop it. Do you want to go? Serenea thought for a long moment. Yes, not because I owe them anything, but because there may be others like me, ... afraid and alone. They need to know they are not broken. Jason nodded. Then we go together. The next day, Serenea stood at the hangar bay, watching the new research vessel being prepared. This time, the ship was not stolen. It was official. It was hers. Jason walked up beside her, carrying their bags. Ready to fly again? She looked at him and smiled. This time I am not running. I am returning as who I truly am. I'm proud of you, Jason said. She turned to him, her voice calm but full of warmth. You are the reason I opened my mind. But now I walk on my own. And I'll walk beside you, he replied. They entered the ship. Behind them, the stars of Navalis glowed softly like a memory. Ahead of them, the skies of Varelia waited, full of doubt, challenge, and hope. Serenea no longer feared her feelings. She was ready to share them. The skies of Varelia were quiet as Serenea's ship descended through the high atmosphere. The pale blue sun cast a soft light across the white towers and smooth roads below. It had only been a few months since she left, but the world already looked different to her. This time she wasn't sneaking in. This time she was invited. Jason stood beside her in the control room, watching the landing platform rise to meet them. You okay? He asked gently. Serenea nodded slowly. I feel many things, but fear is not one of them. The ship touched down with a soft hum. Outside, a group of Varelians waited. Some were council members. Others were scientists. A few were very young new minds, possibly just beginning to feel the first sparks inside themselves. Jason followed her down the ramp, but let her take the lead. She walked with grace, with purpose, not as a rebel, not as an outcast, but as a pioneer. The meeting hall was smaller than the one on Navali's, but filled with more tension. Varelians were still a society of logic and control. Many here had never even seen an emotional Varelian. Before accepting rumors and reports, Elder Moran sat at the head of the room. His face was still calm, unreadable, but his tone had changed. "Serenea, welcome home." She bowed slightly. "Thank you for allowing this discussion." "We do not yet understand your condition," Moran said carefully, "but we cannot deny it has spread." He gestured to the side. A group of young Varelians stood there, from males to females. One of them, Tyrion, stepped forward. "I hear music now and feel something like happiness," he said. "When I make mistakes, I feel shame. When someone helps me, I feel warmth." There was silence. "I don't want these feelings to go away," Tyrion added quietly. Serenea placed a hand over her heart. "You are not alone. You are becoming whole." Over the next days, Serenea spoke with council leaders and scientists. She answered questions with patience and honesty. Jason stayed nearby, sometimes offering simple explanations from the human point of view. She didn't push for quick change. She simply shared. "This isn't about replacing logic," she said during one meeting. "It's about making space for emotion alongside it." Some listened with curiosity, others frowned in doubt. But the fear was no longer as strong. At night, Serenea and Jason sat under the glowing crystal trees of the city gardens. "This world is waking up," she said. "I can feel it." Jason leaned back, looking at the stars. "They're lucky to have you leading them." She turned to him. "I didn't ask to lead exactly," he smiled. "That's why they trust you." A week later, the High Council announced a decision. The Varelian Emotional Study Initiative would begin. It would be a small, peaceful space where emotionally aware Varelians could learn, grow, and live without fear. No one would be forced to join, and no one would be exiled for feeling. Serenea would lead it with Jason as her Earth's liaison and advisor. The news spread quickly. Across the planet and beyond, young Varelians began to step forward. Some had already been hiding their feelings. Others had only just started to notice them. One day, a young girl named Valerie came to the center with her parents. "She cries when her pet is sick," the mother said, worried. "Is she broken?" Knelt beside the girl and touched her hand. "No," she said softly. "She is beginning. And that's beautiful." The learning center quickly filled with life. There were classes on emotion, trust, and expression. Art studios were created. Music rooms filled with strange new sounds. Poetry was read aloud for the first time in Varelian memory. Jason watched Serenea lead her people with kindness and strength. He helped where he could, sharing Earth knowledge, bringing laughter, and telling stories of humanity's emotional journey. But he never stood in front. He always stood beside her. One evening, long after the students had gone to rest, Serenea and Jason walked alone through the garden dome. The sky above was painted with stars, and the soft hum of the city floated in the air. "Do you ever think about how it started?" she asked him. "I do," Jason said. "You were quiet, sharp, a little scary, to be honest." She laughed softly. "And you were ... strange, loud, emotional, and now." "Now you're still strange," she smiled, "but also part of me." Jason reached out and took her hand. "You taught your people how to feel, and you," she said, squeezing his hand gently, "taught me that it was okay to feel first." They stopped under a tall tree with glowing leaves. The night was peaceful. No speeches, no council, no trial. Just two people who had crossed stars and hearts to find something rare and lasting the next day. Saranaya stood before a class of new students. I am not a perfect model, she told them. I still make mistakes. I still get confused, but emotion does not demand perfection. It asks only for honesty. She looked across the room, then out the window, toward the distant sky. There will be challenges, she said, but each feeling you discover is a step toward knowing who you are. One student raised his hand. Is that how humans live? Jason, sitting at the back of the room, answered with a grin. Exactly like that. Epilogue years later. Virelia became known across the galaxy as the world of two minds, a place of reason and emotion joined together. Not all Virelians changed, and that was fine.
Ow.
But those who did were no longer silent. They had a voice, a path, and a place to grow. At the center of it all stood Serena, once called Broken, is now remembered as a bridge. And beside her was Jason the human, who sparked the first fire. Together, they proved that love, understanding, and courage could change a world.